All right. Welcome back to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Just to kind of reflect on what we talked about. We talked about our AEW Dynamite review. We also talked about our Thursday Night Wrestling preview. We jump into the world of Ring of Honor, TNA Impact, and the National Wrestling Alliance, headlined by Billy Corgan, frontman of the Smashing Pumpkins. Trying to take a wrestling product, try to promote it, try to make the best out of it. And to be honest, I think he's doing a really, really good job. Creating different, streaming service, partnerships. Also, creating a partnership with the CW. And yeah, it's only going to get, better and better. So just to make sure, we have our WWE stars interested into joining TNA. So we're going to jump right on into that. But before I move on any further, I want to remind you guys to just hit up the chat. Hit up the tips and donations link at the GSMCpodcast.net. It really does help the show, guys, 1,010%. Obviously, the show's a lot better with a little fan interaction. I don't want to just be babbling on like an idiot to stuff here. Be like, Eric, stop talking. No, like it's awesome. Ultimately, like I said before, wrestling fans are a different breed. We ultimately love, kind of being a part of each other's opinions and stuff like that. If you go to any kind of wrestling, conversation, if you have the same opinion as the other guy, you're a freaking schmuck, bro. I'm just kidding, though. But kind of moving on. Before I move on any further, before we move on into our next segment, which WWE stars are kind of looking forward to kind of the cross combination of TNA. I have a message from Ralph Rodriguez. What problems do you see in the future in WWE with Triple H booking in this new era? Being brutally honest, and I'm a Paul Levesque guy, 1,010%. Even Paul Heyman said it with himself within the WWE Hall of Fame speech. It's just old habits. Old habits. You see WWE NXT stars come up, and people, the creative, the chiefs or the officers did not know what the hell to do with them. Obviously, you kind of saw this with Malachi Black, Andrade, and then Adam Cole making it up to the main roster. With the Undisputed Era. Now they're the Undisputed Kingdom. But what Triple H has done so far really, really well is kind of just shock the crowd. His unpredictable nature. Vince McMahon was mostly known for being super predictable. Obviously, you had big WWE superstars who made it to AEW and helped promote the product in 2019, like the Mark Henry. You saw Paul White, and they knew Vince McMahon. They knew how he was. They knew his nature. But as soon as Triple H kind of took over, I think Paul White and a lot of superstars that jumped ship to AEW, and that includes executives, former superstars, kind of looked at it. They're like, man, let's really stick it to Vince. Let's give him, a reason to kind of hate it and to kind of, but as soon as Triple H took over, I feel like they have a respect for Triple H, for Paul Levesque, ultimately to be like, Triple H is a dude. He's a dog. He's been with the WWE. He's worked his way up. It's not because he ended up having a relationship with Stephanie McMahon. It's because he worked his arse off. Definitely Paul Levesque. He's seen the industry inside and out. He's seen how bad the product was with Vince McMahon, and I think he's doing everything he can to ultimately make the WWE kind of become a better, product, for not just wrestling fans, but kind of just for future fans. You see him appealing to little kids. A lot of people are like, "Oh, wrestling is bad when it's not PG-13." But under the PG era, although it took a little bit of time, I'm not going to, dispute that fact. I feel like Paul Levesque is, kind of taking this toward the right level, toward the right spot. So, that's, kind of my thought toward the thing. But so, yeah, let's go ahead and move on. So we have our TNA, WWE stars interested in joining the TNA kind of movement. Obviously, you saw Jordan Grace enter the WWE NXT, ultimately wanting to kind of open that forbidden door. And she did such a magnificent job. It was awesome. It was sick. Jordan Grace showing up in WWE, still constantly making waves. Obviously, it happened on the May 28th episode of WWE NXT. Grace was revealed as Roxanne Perez's next battleground opponent. And she said this, and I quote, she said, "I'm relieved that I got to do that surprise. That's awesome. Surprises in wrestling, I feel, make it bigger. When no one expects it, I feel good. I feel excited. This is a huge thing for the wrestling world." And that's absolutely correct. What she thought was going to happen exactly happened. I watched it, and I watched obviously the recording, because when I record right now, I'm obviously with you guys, so I recorded it, and I swear to God, I never check TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook for updates, because I want to be genuine with you guys. So I kind of wait. I get done with the podcast at 9, put on NXT, put on AEW, put on Friday Night SmackDown, put on Monday Night Raw, and I'm the last one to get on the news. That's why I'm like, hey, if you want to hit up the chats, not for spoiler alerts. I'm just kidding. If you want to, if you have if you have something juicy, if something juicy happened, absolutely hit it up in the comments. Absolutely. I'm not going to be too mad. Just kidding. No, moving on. Like I said before, I think this is great. Jordan Grace will be on NXT this week. Natalia, earlier in this year, Natalia Neidhart of the Hart Foundation, earlier this year, made an offer to Jordan Grace to, like, dude, let's break open that forbidden door that's been closed for WWE and the WWF for so long. For so long. Just imagine if you had the opportunity for a WCW and a WWE during the Monday Night Wars, kind of like a collaboration there. That would be absolutely sick. Imagine seeing The Undertaker finally fight Sting. Imagine seeing Bill Goldberg finally fight Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like, that's just things that's like, as soon as WWF accumulated the WCW and the ECW, when Vince McMahon bought him out, and he just absolutely just like threw him to the dogs. I want to prove that the WWF, we bought you. You're our product. You're below us. And that's something that Vince McMahon should have never done. The WCW, the WWF would have been better as separate entities. Imagine if Shane McMahon never would have came on Monday Night Nitro. Imagine having two separate entities that nobody really knows that they are, kind of accumulated, kind of partnerships, and it just would have made things better. Would have made things better, because you have both creative ideas in the press room talking at the same time. Be like, okay, we're gonna do this on Thursday Night Thunder. What are you gonna do on Thursday Night SmackDown? Because SmackDown used to be on Thursday nights. Monday Night Raw used to be on Monday Nitro. But Eric Bischoff really didn't do, it's kind of a good job in terms of this, like, waking up that dragon, stroking Vince McMahon's ego, so to speak. So obviously, that never really came to part. But we're kind of moving on here. So we had Ingrid Isley. She's the floor director at TNA, took to social media on Instagram, and she said, and I quote, "So can at Ace Creed Wind," which is Xavier Woods, and ajstyles.org, which is AJ Styles, come across the line for a bit. Like, that's cool. Like, I like that. I like how TNA. I feel like WWE stars on TNA would be absolutely awesome, and not just for TNA, for WWE. A lot of people, because Vince McMahon created the narrative that we don't touch TNA, we don't touch WCW, we don't touch AEW, we don't touch Ring of Honor, we don't touch the NWA, yada yada yada, because we're better than they are, and that's not true. Why do the wrestling fans have to suffer because of the promoters, because the owners, because the chairman, because the vice president, because the presidents have this huge ego? Why do we have to suffer? Obviously, I would absolutely love to see Moose take on AJ Styles. I would love that. I would love to see the AEW champion Swerve Strickland fight against Cody Rhodes. Are you kidding me? That's crazy. That would be amazing. But, obviously I'm not, part of the wrestling, I'm part of the podcasting world, but I'm not, part of the executive world. Although I would kick ass. I would kick ass. WWE should really hire me. Check out my resume. Just kidding. No. Moving on. And Xavier Woods took to social media as well. He said, "Order of business would be, first, let me and Kofi would take those tag team titles," talking about TNA. And then second of all, we would, make a song with Joe Hendry. Love Joe Hendry. Love his creative mind. Love his musical mind. You also saw Drew McIntyre embracing his world championship run through the history of TNA. He said, "Doors open both ways." And that's true. That's true. Ever since Jordan Grace came on, a lot of people think that it's just Jordan Grace that WWE wants. It hasn't been it hasn't been, written in ink yet. It hasn't been, really kind of, volatile toward the reason why TNA and WWE could possibly be kind of having this partnership. There's still a lot of doors that could be open, and that's something that it's huge for WWE. Huge for WWE. Love it as a wrestling fan. If you really honestly want to become one of the best wrestling or scratch that sports entertainment conglomerate in the world, you can't be afraid to make change. A lot of people do make change. They say 90% of people who are born in the same zip code, 90% of them die in the same zip code. And that, some obviously was a stat I heard from Colin Cowherd earlier today on the herd. But it makes sense. It makes sense. If you're a person who is afraid of change, it's not going to be, your life isn't going to be as exciting, because you get into this routine, and routines are good. Routines are good. And I know I'm going a little tangent here talking about things other than wrestling. But ultimately, I think WWE should embrace the change that they've never made. They've never WWE and WWF has never made this change in the world of wrestling, opening that forbidden door, having wrestlers randomly come out. I think Paul Levesque is different. I think Triple H is more innovative. I think he really honestly knows how big this could be for wrestling and its fans. So yeah, Triple H is doing an amazing job, 110%. Yeah, doors open both way. AJ Styles could possibly surprise Moose. I know AJ Styles' WWE contract is currently kind of being up right now. They have not come to a deal as I know of. But would it be crazy if they signed AJ Styles to be like, hey, like, why don't you go over to your old stomping ground in TNA to just kind of rile up the crowd a little bit, like what I mean? AJ Styles would take that in a heartbeat, first and foremost, and second of all, this is his home. This is where he found the most success. AJ Styles has been, he asked Nick Aldis on Friday Night SmackDown, what's next for me? And he was like, dude, honestly, you failed against Randy Orton in the King of the Ring qualifying match, and you lost to Cody Rhodes at WWE Backlash in France. I can't really help you, dude. I can't really help you. So AJ Styles definitely making a jump back into the TNA, or if he's signed by TNA and kind of they go back and forth and stuff like that. It would be kind of like we never really lost, AJ Styles, but I hope he stays a WWE superstar. I honestly do 110%. So yeah, and then you also got to think of teenage superstars. You saw Bully Ray make an appearance at WrestleMania. The LA Knight is a former TNA champion. Kurt Angle, part of the training staff with WWE. He's huge. He's signed to a Hall of Famer contract, and it's just huge. It's just huge. You have Cody Rhodes' influence on cross brands. Cody Rhodes is probably the ultimate depiction of what success takes you when you kind of dabble around these world of wrestling. WWE ultimately rejected Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes was a one time Intercontinental Champion, and he was a two-time tag team champion with Goldust. And like then he left, went to Ring of Honor, went to New Japan Professional Wrestling, went to TNA, he started his own company in AEW, and honestly, if you probably could take you know, any props or any advice from anybody, I think Cody Rhodes would probably be the best person to do it. So, I think that kind of also, ultimately, kind of came into the decision of why Triple H wanted to put the belt on Cody Rhodes. Because if you think about it, you kind of, and also we do have Matt Cardona, formerly known as, Zack Ryder, woo, 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 it. But, and you have Nick Aldis. Nick Aldis used to be in TNA as well. But you got to remember that right now in WWE, they don't really have a savior besides Cody. Like, I know a lot of, they're building up this young bloodline with Solo Sikoa, Tamatanga, and Tongaloa, but you don't have John Cena. You don't have Roman Reigns. You don't have The Rock, and you don't have Brock Lesnar. So obviously, WWE is trying to do everything in their power to be kind of prominent in the professional wrestling industry, which is kind of a huge reason why I feel like they kind of reached out to TNA and be like, hey guys, like, essentially, we're not a struggling company, but the guy who had a huge ego and, talked down about you guys is gone. We can make this work. We can make this work for your wrestlers, for our wrestlers. We can just make business work. And that's something that wrestling of course, Vince McMahon and the WWF should have done for the longest time. But yeah, obviously, didn't really succumb to Earth. But yeah, we're rapidly running out of time. I always do this with my podcast, is because I love talking to you guys, love the fans, love my WWE wrestling laureates. I'm just kidding, no. Well, not that I don't love you, but like moving on. I like to jabber on like an idiot. So we're gonna move on to our fourth segment. We're gonna talk about Eric's World Cup greatest tag teams. Not gonna introduce the brackets yet. Not gonna introduce the matchups. I just want to introduce the tag teams. The Sweet 16. We got 16 tag teams in the world of wrestling and history that will surface on my amazing Tag Team World Cup. So, who is going to be on the list? Take your guess.